Lord Mayor. Cardiff likes to rightly think of itself as a world-class city, and I'm sure we would all agree that world-class cities require world-class facilities. However, for anyone that has visited it in recent years, I doubt that's a description that anyone would use for our city's main hospital. The University Hospital of Wales, usually referred to locally as the Heath Hospital, was built in the 1960s and opened in 1971. And sadly, in the past year, it's often been in the headlines for the wrong reasons. And in recent months, many of the times it has featured, the stories have been about the deteriorating state of many of its buildings, especially the older parts, such as the main hospital building. Anyone who has seen this coverage will know there are regular problems there with water leaks, sewage leaks, heating system breakdowns and problems with infestations, even reports of pigeons getting into clinical areas within the hospital. Now, I don't often read the Daily Mail, but it was drawn to my attention recently by a resident that the Daily Mail did recently suggest that the Heath Hospital could be the worst hospital in the UK, with the structural problems with the building being a significant contributory factor to that judgment. Now, I don't often take what's written in the Daily Mail at face value, but I have spoken to enough people in recent months who share my group's deep concern about the state of some of the buildings at the hospital. Many who have been there tell me that buckets to catch drips are a common sight throughout many parts of the building. And a consultant I was speaking to just a few weeks ago told me there are even buckets now in the comparatively new concourse that was added onto the main building in the late 1990s. I, in fact, worked in the Heath in those days, and I know that there was a growing maintenance backlog beginning to show at that point, and sadly, of course, it has got worse in the intervening years. Of course, these problems aren't just an inconvenience, they also impact on patient care. I was talking to a lady a couple of months ago who told me about the difficulty she'd had trying to get an outpatient appointment for a hearing problem. Her first appointment had been cancelled due to a staffing problem. But the day before she was due to attend her rescheduled appointment, she had a phone call from the hospital. And the person who called her was very apologetic. Her appointment was going to have to be delayed again, and the reason for this was because the ceiling had just collapsed in the consulting room. Another resident I've spoken to has told me that she's involved in organising some of the clinics at the hospital, but she told me that all too often she's having to cancel clinics because of issues with the building. And some of you may have seen the recent coverage given to the issue by ITV Wales. They interviewed a transplant surgeon from the Heath, Professor Asdarakis, and what he had to tell them was very concerning. He talked about air conditioning and ventilation failures. He went on to explain that ventilation failures had caused operating theatres to be shut down, leading to operations being delayed or cancelled. And in addition, he talked about a particular leak which had led to a vascular radiology suite having to be shut down for 3 weeks. So these issues are clearly having consequences. Now, we may be debating this motion in the building, which also has its problems, but the problems this building have perhaps don't have quite the same consequences. They aren't leading to important treatments and operations for NHS Wales patients having to be postponed or cancelled. And as we know, if treatments and operations have to be postponed or cancelled, this can clearly lead to worsened health outcomes for patients. And of course, the other difference between this building and the Heath Hospital is that the Council does have a funded plan in place to replace this building. There is currently, however, no agreed funded plan to rebuild UHW. And that's why we've brought this motion forward to Council today. And what we were hoping to achieve was that this Chamber could unite across the party groups to agree a cross-party call on the next Welsh Government to address that by bringing forward a clear funded plan to rebuild UHW. And on that point, I will turn to the amendments. Firstly, the amendment put forward by the Conservative Group is one which we are happy to accept. We have no issues with acknowledging the superb efforts of the many staff who work so incredibly hard at the Heath Hospital on our behalf. And we have no problem with asking for an action plan to be agreed within 6 months following the appointment of the new Welsh Government, which should be in place, of course, following the upcoming elections. Regrettably, however, we cannot support the Labour amendment. For one thing, it takes us into the sort of finger-pointing which we did actually try to avoid when we drafted our motion. We hope that the grave state of the Heath Hospital is something we could all just acknowledge and find a way to work together in order to secure a way forward in securing its rebuild. However, our main concern with the Labour amendment is the fact that it removes the main call from our motion. In fact, it's nothing but a wrecking amendment, as it rips out the main objective that the motion was seeking to achieve. Instead of what we proposed a call on the next Welsh Government to bring forward a clear funded plan to rebuild UHW. The Labour amendment replaces it with welcoming a commitment that's been made by the current First Minister. However, as of tomorrow, the First Minister is to all intents and purposes just the leader of one of the political parties in Wales that will be contesting the upcoming Senedd election. I am not aware that the commitment you refer to in your amendment is actually a government commitment rather than just an election pledge. And we all know that all the indications are that the current First Minister is unlikely to remain as First Minister after May's elections. So instead of our motion making a call for action by the next Welsh Government, all the Labour amendment will in essence achieve is to acknowledge the existence of an election pledge put forward by a party that may never actually have the chance to follow up on it. So please, I would urge members, and I'd urge Labour to think carefully, why don't you withdraw your amendment? Let's have a cross-party united call with the original call in our motion to call for whoever's the next Welsh Government, whatever parties form it, to come up with a clear funded plan to rebuild our main hospital. We owe it to the people of this city. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Councillor.